left in the store. He left a beer bottle in the store. And, and I told him, I know that my prints are not on the bottle because I wasn't there. It's all you have to do is match it up and, get me out of here.
Right.
I thought it was just that easy.
That's simple.
But it wasn't. So they went through the testing and they had found the guy's hat. I think the guy threw his hat and glasses away as he was running away from the store. And they found the hat and they found hair samples in the hat. So they, back then, they didn't have the technology like they do now, so the DNA was like very, very early stages back then. And it was done a different way. Even the fingerprint system was done totally different. So they tested all of the stuff and, it come back negative, which I knew it would. And I just assumed that would be it. But, we went on to trial and actually when I was interviewed or interrogated on this, the detective who did the interrogation coerced me, threatened my family. Direct pointed, told me that he would have my sister and her kids taken, and have her locked up for harboring a fugitive. So at that particular time, I didn't know what to do, and he had this radio sitting right on the table, and he told me that's all he had to do was get on his radio and radio over because they had a cop car waiting outside my sister's house to get her. So that put me, really in a bad position, being a young man. If I was the age that I am now and with the understanding that I have now, it wouldn't have went that way. But I didn't have the tools that I have now.
Of course.
So the officer the detective had told me a lot of stuff, like what the guy had on. But he was telling me like it was me, And I was like, well, I don't know about any of that, because it wasn't me, I wasn't there, and we went back and forth for several hours. Maybe between 5 and 7 hours. I was interrogated, and I told myself that, you know what, if I tell this man that I did it, he's gonna lock me up. But when they find out, about the fingerprints and
all of that.
You're gonna see that it's not me because you're telling me that I done left a bottle here, but I know my fingerprints are not on it. So I told him, I said, okay, I'll tell you whatever you want me to say, and he recanted some things to me before I went on the tape, and I just recanted what he had told me back over the tape. So it was
like a confession then, as far as they was concerned.
Yes. So I was faced with having to deal with this confession now. So as my attorneys prepared for trial, we had another hearing, and the hearing showed that it was a suppression hearing, and the hearing really showed that the detective had in fact fed me information, but the day of my trial, the judge who had sat over the suppression hearing, was no longer in that courtroom. Something happened to where the judge got moved. So it was a new judge that sat over the ruling of the suppression hearing and my trial. So he ruled against me in the suppression hearing and progressed with the trial. So I wound up going to trial and getting convicted. But the strange thing to me always has been that I was charged with murder 1. And robbery 1. And if jury of my peers feels that I actually committed this crime, then convict me of what I was charged with, which is murder 1 and robbery 1. Now, I'm not saying by no means that I wanted to go to the,
I understand what you're saying,
the death penalty at all. But from my understanding now, this is the process of our justice system, and for whatever reason, the jury elected not to convict me of murder 1 but to convict me of a manslaughter in the second degree, which is a far great lesser, of lesser charge. So I was sentenced to 10 years on a manslaughter 2. Wow. And they convicted me of robbery in the first degree. And the robbery in the first degree, I got a maximum sentence of 20 years. So I had 30-year sentence.
Wow, wow.
So I went to prison in '95, and I was in prison from '95 until 2002, where I was released on parole.
Okay, so that was almost 10 years. So that basically took care of the whole 30?
No, it didn't take care of the whole 30 because I was released on parole.
Okay.
Parole is just another extension of prison for me.
Okay.
Because I had to report on a regular basis to a parole officer. I had to pay parole fees.
Right.
I had to pay a crime victims fund, $100 when I very first got out. The very first day I was out, I was ordered to pay a $100 fine to the crime victims fund in Louisville. And 7 years of paying a parole officer every time I seen him.
Right.
You know, sometimes when I first started out, I think I seen him twice a week, and then it moved to once a week, then it moved to once a month, and then once every 3 months. You know, so it phased out, but it took 7 years to phase out. You know, while I was still, you know, trying to figure a way that I could get some help with this case still. You know, even though I was out, I was still pressing forward with, you know, my life, but at the same time I was wanting to really get this off of me, you know, and I just felt like there was something somebody could have done.
Right, exactly. Now, this is really interesting because a lot of people have done time and they're saying that they didn't actually do the crime. But once they do the time, they feel like, well, just try to go on, you know. But in your case, you're saying, wait a minute, you know, it's got to be something that can be done about this. Now, how much parole were you supposed to be on?
There's no limit to parole, really. It's just whether you're on active parole or inactive parole.
Okay, okay.
I did the 7 years, and it pushed me to go to an inactive stage.
Okay.
While I was on parole, I mean, there was just a lot of guidelines that I had to obey by still, just like I was in prison, you know. So it made my life still difficult, you know, to maneuver in, you know, when I still got all of these parameters. I'm a construction, I have degrees in construction, so that's what I was, you know, doing. And a lot of times that work takes you out of town in different places, and you know, I had to get a work visa from my parole officer just to go and work in Indiana, you know, and different things like that. So it made my life, you know, still difficult.
Right, and now let's go back to this time, even before you got out. How can you express any kind of way without, I guess, however you want to? How was that, being in prison, knowing you were innocent? I mean, did you like adapt? Did you just kind of make do? Were you angry, wanted to hurt people? I mean, how was that for you?
I think it was everything you just described.
Oh, okay.
You know, all in one. You know, just disbelief and uncertainty, you know, about life now because, you know, I mean, how could you have a clear vision of what your future is going to be when, you know, you're stuck right now? You know? So there was a point in time in the beginning of this, you know, very early when I was in prison, that I just told myself, you know what, you're not dead.
Right.
And it's really either sink or swim now. You know, it's about survival for you, for me, you know, for my future. It's about, you know, making sure that I can better myself in this situation. Clinged hold to God really, really strong, you know. and just started believing and having faith in God that, one day this will be over, And so that's what I did. I decided to swim instead of sink.
Wow, wow,
And,
wow. Was it? Did you have to kind of get a? I'm not going to say killer instinct, but a survival kind of instinct as far as prison life. Because
Yes.
now I was there for 3 years and a couple of months, and I saw a lot of stuff. And I was guilty, but I saw a lot of stuff, and it still affected me a lot. So as an innocent man going in, not having that kind of mentality, how did you survive with the maybe threats of your life or things of that nature? How was that for you? Or were you protected?
I just, I dealt with it just like anybody would, or, um, like I said, it was, when I told myself that it was either sink or swim, it was surely about survival.
Right, right, right,
You
right.
know, so yes, there were things that I had to do to make sure that my survival was intact.
Right, I understand. I understand. I understand.
There were safeguards that I had to make for myself.
Right, I understand.
I worked out a lot. Not to say that size matters, but sometimes it does.
Sometimes it does, and sometimes that gives you personal confidence.
Yes.
Itself,
Yes.
and because people don't realize, prison is another world.
Yes, totally.
It's a whole nother world,
It's totally a different world.
The outside people don't really understand the mentality that a person has to have to survive in prison.
Correct.
Whether like you said, either sink or swim. You're going to either become a part of the system, or you're going to let the system work for you so you can better yourself.
Exactly, and that's what I seen in it. You have to but I use the same principles now in life. Not just because I was in prison. I took those same principles
Right.
that I thrived on and built myself up on, and I applied it, in society.
Right, exactly.
And that's how I live today. Back then it was more, like I said, of a survival type of thing that I had to make it to the next day. I had to make sure that I made it to the next day.
Yes, that's it.
And as long as I continued to make it to the next day, in that day I found that how much good can I produce for myself in this day? How much good can I produce for myself now? So it's a process, I didn't start out just with a whole ball of wax to say I'm this big guy and I'm gonna walk around prison, and it wasn't that at all. It was just the point that I knew that I had to have a direction in life.
Right.
And there's always gonna be the left side or the right side, and I chose the right side. And I continue to choose the right side, the right choices, the right direction in life. And I went and got into school. I had dropped out of school early in life. I went to school, got my GED. I went immediately into a trade.
Good.
And I wound up graduating tops in my class in the trade, and wound up going on to tutor in that trade. And then I went back and tutored for the educational side. And so I kept myself busy. I kept myself with constructive things and positive things in my mind, amongst all of the negative that was around me and that surrounded me. I tried to stay positive every day. So,
and that's powerful. Now I know, since you went to trial, you had all kinds of, I guess, avenues that you could take as far as trying to get your case overturned and looked at. And did you do all of those things?
Yes, I did all of those things. And actually, the one thing that I did that is a big plus in this situation is, before I was released on parole, there was a pamphlet that kind of like circulated the prison that I was at. And it was from the Kentucky Innocence Project.
Right.
And one of my associates told me, he was like, I know your case, I know you've been working on it the whole time, and you know, maybe you should try this, you know,
Right.
and see if they can give you some extra assistance.
Right.
And, you know, I looked at it and I was like, well, you know, really at this point, I don't have anything to lose, you know.
Right.
So, you know, I filled it out and they wrote me a response back, and I wound up responding back to that. And then they sent me a really big correspondence, like, but it needed me to detail all of the facts, all of the evidence, all of everything in this case, and all of the paperwork. So I had to gather up all of the stuff that I had been, you know, accumulating over, you know, the last 10 years, and, you know, get it all to them. So I got that done, and I went up for parole, and I made parole, and I was released, and then I just went on with my life. You know, I went on with starting to build my life, you know.
So you didn't really hear anything from it until after you had gotten out.
Yes.
So now let me ask you this: going in and after getting the time, did you kind of have an idea as to how much you would have to do if you didn't get any kind of relief from court? Did you have an idea that maybe it would be almost 10 years, or were you looking at the 30 and saying it could be any time between today and 30 years from now?
Right. Exactly.
That's how you looked at it.
Anywhere between now and 30 years. So,
Wow.
excuse me. But in a positive sense, that was good for me because I had a 30-year window to work on myself.
Wow.
You know, I had a 30-year window to work on myself. And even though that's a long time, that gave me a leg up for when I got out. You know? And that's the way that I looked at it. You know, I didn't sit back and wonder negative thoughts about it, you know, because like I said, it was about survival, you know, and making sure that I could better myself and be productive and all of that, you know, so.
And I've always, you know, wanted, and I get some of the same kinds of information when I ask innocent guys, how do you survive like that and keep your mind intact, knowing that you are innocent, and instead of just fading yourself away or committing suicide? Because I was guilty when I thought about committing suicide. So how do you just not say, just give up? You know, I just give up. This is hopeless case. I'm in here for nothing. I'm just giving up, just cutting it loose.
Well, I have.
You have?
I have, yeah. But I mean, you know, I mean, how do you just give up breathing? You know, I mean, you can't just lay down and
just die.
Right.
You almost got to do it
give
yourself.
up.
Right.
It's not like anything that you think that you would have went through, I went through.
Wow.
You know, it's nothing different. But, you know, when I gave up, I realized that that terminology really doesn't exist, because you can't just give up.
We're gonna stop it right there, because this is the first part of this first show, and we're gonna pick it up from there on the second show. So okay. I really kind of want to really find out, you know, what happened from that point. Okay. And so we'll come back for the second show. I want to thank you for watching Life After Lockup, the first half of this